Las Vegas tells us that it's going to be Noah Kim, not Katin Houser, starting at quarterback against Central Michigan. Also, where do our Spartans stack up in the Big Ten media poll? And then, yes, we are joined by Ryan O'Blennis. We talk Spartan Dawg Con. We talk some recruiting. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to today's show of Locked On Spartans. I'm your host, Matt Sheehan, and yes, we do this, 3 days a week until next week. That's right, we are back in August. That means we are back to 5 days a week, building up to football season, or hey, any news that breaks with basketball as well, you know where to find us. And if you ever want to reach out, any questions, comments, some mortal lock bets you have coming up for this season, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Now, speaking of bets, yes, the fine folks out in the desert, they have officially made their pick for the Michigan State starting quarterback when they kick off their season against the Chips. And, folks, that's right, it is Noah Kim. He has minus 200 odds to become the starter for Michigan State to take that week one first snap. Katin Houser, the only other quarterback listed, plus 150. Now, what does that mean? What does minus 200 mean? Well, it means that you have to bet $200 to profit $100. All right, if you're not a betting person, this is basically saying that there's roughly a 67% chance, according to Las Vegas, that Noah Kim will be that starting quarterback against Central Michigan. So, well, what do I think of that? Quite frankly, that sounds about right. If you walked up to me on the street, first of all, hello, nice to meet you. Second of all, if you asked, hey, who's going to be the starting quarterback week one? I would say, yeah, it probably is going to be Noah Kim. That is where I would put it at. Also, I mean, not to follow Vegas hand in hand here, but yeah, I'd probably give it like a 2/3 chance of happening here. Now, why do I think that? I think a lot was told to us on that final spring practice, the one televised by Big Ten Network. Yes, it was Peyton Thorne with just about the bulk of the snaps. Not too far behind him was Noah Kim. And then Katin Houser, kind of distant-ish third. I mean, it's not like they treated him like he was some walk-on quarterback, but yeah, he was third in the pecking order. Now, of course, there's a lot more story to be told. I mean, throughout the practice, there were scrimmages where it's been told to me that Katin Houser outperformed the other two guys. There's also been scrimmages where Noah Kim outperformed other guys. But yes, leaving the spring practice session, it seemed pretty clear that Noah Kim was that number two guy. But again, it's not a mortal lock. I mean, hey, there's still 4 weeks of practice before Michigan State kicks off their season. And actually, hey, if you're listening on a Wednesday, it's actually 1 week until we are kicking off fall camp. That's what we're going to call it in August, fall camp, I guess, before the season. So, yeah, I mean, we still got a long way to go. Those are going to be a very important 4 weeks. And can Katin Houser jump Noah Kim? Absolutely he can. I mean, he's the more physically gifted of the two, both with size, arm strength, leg strength as well. But, hey, look, I mean, if you're going to ask me who I want to be the starting quarterback, I'm going to do the worst thing that a talking sports head person can possibly do. And I'm sorry to say it, but I'm going to play Sweden here. I mean, I'm going to trust the coaching staff here. If it is Noah Kim in week one, I'm all in. Sure, because, look, let me work backwards here. Not picking Katin Houser would speak volumes about how good the staff thinks of Noah Kim's game. All right, if it's going to be a politics play, and they're going to make their decision just based on politics and only that, Houser's the easy choice. Houser was that first blue chip prospect that this staff brought in to play quarterback. Noah Kim, he's a holdover from the D'Antonio era. So, yeah, if it was just down to, well, hey, we're going to stick to an agenda here, this is what we're going to go with, it would easily be Houser. So if Kim is announced as the guy that's been here longer, the guy that has a little more game experience than Katin Houser, and a guy that, by all accounts, had a pretty solid practice, well, that would show me that, wow, Kim is so good that he's actually beating the guy that we brought here, and a guy that, quite frankly, I think the staff might not want to see jump in the portal with Katin Houser. But again, This is a bet that you can make. This is a prediction Vegas says for who is the snap one week one quarterback. This isn't, hey, who's going to get 85 snaps week one? Like this, I still think is going to be a battle that we're going to see continued into the season. Perhaps those first 2 weeks before they name a bona fide starter for that Washington game. Again, not just the season we have to go through, the beginning of the season, but how about the 4-ish weeks of practice that kick off next Wednesday? But just other notable quarterback battles that Vegas has listed. We're going to highlight one here. Auburn, Peyton Thorne plus 100. And then Robbie Ashford minus 140. That's right. Peyton Thorne, as Vegas tells you, not the favorite to be the starter in Auburn week one. That would be mighty, mighty interesting. But again, they got 4 weeks to sell things out over there. That race is a little closer, than an already close race with Kim versus Houser. But there you go. Just something to keep your eye on there. All right, we're going to head over to Cleveland.com. Every single year since I can remember, at least, in the week of Big Ten Media Days, they come out with their media poll. 37 members vote on this poll, ranking the Big Ten East teams, the Big Ten West teams. And Michigan State, no first place votes. I don't know, I'm going to shock a lot of you right there. Michigan, unfortunately, was the overwhelming favorite here. 27 first place votes. Ohio State got 8 first place votes, and then Penn State 2 first place votes, which, again, we'll talk about this as we get closer to the season. We've already talked about it a little before, but I like the value in Penn State's Big Ten championship odds. But hey, we're not here to talk about the Nittany Lions. 4th in the Big Ten East is Maryland. All right, they have 143 points in this voting system. Michigan State is 5, Rutgers is 6, and Indiana dead last in 7th. All right, we're going to go through the Big Ten West really quick before we circle back to the Big Ten East. The Big Ten West, a little closer of voting for first place. Wisconsin is number 1 with 20 first place votes. Iowa, of course, Michigan State has to visit in week 5, 16 first place votes. And then Minnesota, another team Michigan State has to visit, 1 first place vote. To round it out, number 4 was Illinois, number 5, Nebraska, number 6, Purdue, and then dead last, God, so far last, you can't even believe it. Shocker, Northwestern here. The most predicted Big Ten championship game is Michigan over Wisconsin. Second place is Michigan over Iowa, then Michigan over Minnesota. But you'd be surprised that, hey, like these media members, they know a lot about the Big Ten. Michigan is an overwhelming favorite. Cleveland.com's actually only gotten the title right 3 out of 12 years. Imagine that. After all those dominant Ohio State teams where it just seemed like Ohio State was the obvious answer, no, they're right 3 out of 12 times there. So, look, let's talk about why Michigan State is 5th, why Maryland is 4th. Are we happy with it? No, probably not. But should we be surprised? In my opinion, no. Look, Tua's brother, Tualia Tagovailoa, comes back for his 9th year at Maryland. And I swear, he started playing in 2015, and no one even cares about Maryland football, and no one's even checked the eligibility of these players. But besides that, besides his NFL arm, besides the solid players on the outside that he could throw the ball to, what's something that no one ever talks about when it comes to Maryland football, and for good reason, more times than not? It's their defense. Guys, Maryland's got a pretty good defense this year. And God, that sentence sounded so awkward coming out of my mouth. I never thought I'd say something like that, but they were a pretty solid pass defense last year, and they returned most of, if not all, the guys in their back 7 this upcoming year. So, hey, not only did they play Ohio State somewhat close last year, they only lost to them by 13 points, but also let's look at their schedule as well. All right, their crossover games are at Northwestern. Okay, it's harder to travel to a Chicago area high school team than it is to Northwestern this year. Anyway, they got to go to Nebraska. That'll be a tough one. And then a home game against Illinois. Their big 3 for the rest of the Big Ten East. They got to go to Ohio State, but they get to host Penn State and host Michigan. And not just hosting Michigan, but hosting Michigan before their Ohio State game. May they catch them in a sleepy moment. Whereas Michigan State's crossover, a little harder. They got to go to Minnesota and then to Iowa. Both those schools got first place votes for the Big Ten West, and then home game versus Nebraska. And then, of course, the big 3, home versus Michigan, home versus Penn State at Ford Field, and then road against Ohio State. So not only is Maryland returning a lot of good players and a proven quarterback, but I surely would certainly take the Terrapins schedule over Michigan State. But look, this is one of the barometers I'm going to be looking for this year. All right, bowl eligibility has to be item number one. I think that's a goal that's in all of our minds right now. And then number two, look, just establish yourself a little higher than Maryland. Solidify yourself as that fourth team in the Big Ten and just keep on climbing up. Again, this is a rebuilding process. Let's just get over Maryland, but a lot easier said than done. That's what Cleveland.com tells us, and that's how we are justifying it. Gang, we will be joined by Ryan O'Blennis of Spartans Illustrated here in a hot second. Need to talk your ear off about LinkedIn jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to 100% become certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And hey, that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and, best of all, for free. It's so easy to create a job on LinkedIn Jobs. Heck, guys, even I can do it. Come on. So create your job, add your job, and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that your business is hiring. Simple tools like screening questions can make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. It is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, that's right, they apply. All right, we're going to be joined by Ryan O'Blennis of Spartans Illustrated here in a hot second. Quick editor's note, we recorded earlier on Tuesday where, hey, Nigel Glover, former four-star, transfers from Northwestern. He was going to visit Michigan State this weekend on an official visit. Yeah, a few hours after that chat, it breaks that, no, he's going to go to Ohio State instead. He will not be visiting Michigan State. We talk about Nigel for maybe like 5 minutes in this chat. I edited most of it out, where it was seamless to edit out. So if you hear Nigel Glover, maybe for like a 30-second to a minute split, I'm sorry. But yeah, Nigel Glover, more great news on the recruiting trail for four-star linebackers. No, he's not visiting Michigan State. So, all right, let's get to our Spartan Dawg chat with Ryan O'Blennis. Let's go. We are now joined by friend of the program, ROB, Ryan O'Blennis of Spartans Illustrated. Ryan, hey, thanks a ton for joining us, especially during your busy week. You're off to Big Ten Media Days pretty soon. But hey, before we get you on the road, how you doing, man? We doing okay?
I'm good. Just getting back from Palm Springs, California, so it didn't melt. Nice to have a little break from the computer, but back at it now. The grind never really stops.
No, of course not. But yeah, no, good to see you didn't melt in those 118-degree temperatures or whatever the heck it was over in Palm Springs. So, hey, good to see you. And I like that you're doing some scouting over there for Michigan State's game against Arizona on the hardwood at Acrisure Arena or whatever it's called out there. I'm sure that's what you were doing out in that neck of the woods. But hey, Ryan, enough about basketball. It is football season, and it's already back to recruiting season after a dead period that was about 13 minutes long for the staff. But hey, we have a big weekend up ahead. It's Spartan Dawg Con. We're going to have some former players. We're going to have some, hopefully incoming players, because there is going to be a big recruiting emphasis this week. We're going to have all sorts of commits coming up this week, but we're not here to talk about that, Ryan. No. We're here to talk about targets. I'm going to rip through this list really quick and then ask what name intrigues you the most here. So 2024 four-star receiver Burdell Richardson, of course, teammates with Anthony Scuda Carey. 2025 safety Desmond Stroughton. 2026 offensive lineman Gregory Patrick. 2025 offensive lineman Ben Nichols. 25 three-star athlete Cassius Shivers. 26 athlete Corey Sadler. 26 Khalif Canty. 25 three-star linebacker Andre Thomas Jr. 25 three-star wide receiver Antoine Thomas. 24 four-star offensive tackle Carter Lowe. 25 three-star linebacker Cooper Catalano. 25 four-star offensive tackle Avery Gatch. And then, that was a lot of 24, 25, and a few 26s. But hey, we also have a 2023 kid. We talked about him not too long ago, a few weeks ago, with the Northwestern fallout. Four-star linebacker Nigel Glover. He has since, ever since the whole scandal happened, defected from Northwestern. Michigan State is having him on campus this week. Ryan, that was a lot of names. That was a lot of rambling. Amongst those names, is there any one or two or maybe even three that really catch your eye as far as intrigue go for this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Richardson is the lone 24 target on the list. Michigan State wants to add at least another receiver to the group. As you mentioned, he's teammates with Anthony Carey. They were also teammates with Eddie Pleasant, current MSU freshman cornerback at Carrollwood Day. So the connection is there. I know that the staff likes Richardson. He's a really talented player. His recruitment's been a little harder to follow, but he is certainly, somebody who's really good, really talented that they would like to pair with Nick Marsh in the class. I think getting him up here for this weekend, if he is able to make it, is going to be big. I think that Michigan State's likely high on his list because of he has those teammates there, and he has I think probably sees a path to early playing time perhaps in the first couple of years. I think it makes a lot of sense for both parties, but obviously he has other schools in the mix too trying to get him. So, that one's huge. And then, as you mentioned, bringing in a potential transfer with Glover from Northwestern. It sounds like maybe he's taking some other visits too to Kentucky and Michigan. But if Michigan State's able to get him for, it might be actually an official visit for 2 days. I'm still working to confirm all this information. But, if that's the case, obviously they can roll out the red carpet, show him everything they need to. He's going to be there during Spartan Dawg Con, and all these alum are back. The linebacker group has a lot of bodies in there right now, but I think there's obviously for the future for him, a path to playing time that, would be pretty easy to see after this year. And, obviously, as you mentioned, with everything that happened at Northwestern, those players were able to hop into the transfer portal after Fitzgerald was fired if they chose to do so. So it looks like he's weighing his options there. Like I said, I'm hoping to find out some more information about him, but he's a guy who had, I think, like 25 offers coming out of high school. He's a linebacker who also has he also has the versatility to play safety if need be. He'd be nice. Pretty much, a really good add, similar to, getting Ken Talley late last year. And so, Michigan State's always looking to add that kind of talent and upgrade the roster where they can. I think they'll definitely be pushing for him. So, those are two names that obviously stick out. And then, as you mentioned, there's a lot of 2025, 2026 targets coming, or, at least tentatively or planning to. You never know who's actually going to make it until they actually get there. But, yeah, so there's, I think it's going to be a big weekend. I think having the different events with the alum coming in, the current players, the current staff, the recruits, and then on top of all the names you mentioned, I think pretty much every 2024 commit is going to be there.
Gotcha.
The only one who I still haven't gotten an answer from is Logan Bennett, but as far as I know, he's planning to be there too. And again, these are all tentative, even if they're planning to be there, some of them might not make it, but I think that's also going to be big to have all 12 commits out there and being able to recruit guys like Richardson, guys in the 2025 and 2026 classes, even guys like Glover who are looking for a new home to transfer into. They can all tell them about their experiences with MSU, why they committed, what they love about the program, what they love about campus, and just kind of connect with those guys, and that's all going to be huge.
Speaking of recruiting, Ryan, you've done some great pieces over at Spartans Illustrated, and not just recently. I mean, you've been doing great stuff over there ever since the whole website started, basically. But specifically about Detroit recruiting, and even more specifically on top of that, you've done some good pieces with the kids from Belleville, a little bit of Cass Tech action. What is the health with Michigan State and those Detroit schools like, in your opinion, right now?
Yeah, so the Cass Tech connection's always been kind of interesting to me since, Mel Tucker has gotten there. They've really had a good relationship. Obviously things were a little rocky there in Detroit with, toward the end of the Mark Tantonio era. But I think, Tucker and his staff have done a really good job kind of rebuilding that pipeline. I think Tucker even recently mentioned that on the Jack Ebling show, about how they've been able to make a lot of progress within the state and specifically within Detroit. And, I talked to a bunch of the Cass Tech players and the head coach there, Marvin Rushing, at the Wayne State 7-on-7 event earlier this month.
Okay.
And, basically what they said was a lot of their pillars, a lot of their goals, objectives, things like that are the same, that Michigan State has. That's the same kind of thing that Cass Tech is looking to accomplish. And, there are several players on Michigan State's roster already who went to Cass Tech. Obviously Jalen Thompson comes in this year as a 4-star. Jaron Mangum transferred in, former Cass Tech player who was considering Michigan State out of high school. Sebastian Brown's another one returning. And then, they're targeting all kinds of kids from there. CJ Sadler in 2026, Cleve Canty in 2026. Alex Graham, he recently made the move to IMG Academy, but he is a Cass Tech kid. And Cassius Shivers, another 2025 with Graham, who, they're in on all these kids who I think, hold Michigan State in a high regard because that relationship between Cass Tech and Michigan State is so strong. Another thing that Rushing said is basically, they try to emulate what Michigan State does. Everything that, they kind of are hoping to accomplish, like their foundation of what they're trying to build, all that stuff comes from the Michigan State program. They have that good relationship there, and they have a really, a lot of talent comes through Cass Tech. And I was watching them at that 7-on-7 event. And another thing Rushing told me was that, this team isn't built for spandex season, is what he called it. 7-on-7.
I like that.
Yeah. But he's, because they're physical. They want the pads on. They want to knock the spit out of your mouth, stuff like that. But then I was watching them at the 7-on-7 just dominate everybody. And I'm like, if you're telling me this team isn't built for spandex season, I can only imagine what they're going to do once pads get on. So
right, no kidding.
Having a connection with that school, with that kind of talent that comes in and out every year is huge for Michigan State. And, as for Belleville, I think that maybe not quite as many, maybe not quite as strong as Cass Tech, but still a good relationship. They recently, hired a new coach there that was actually their third head coach, I think, since the 2022 season started, because their prior coach got fired for a violation of some sort. And then their next coach that they hired in ended up taking a college job. So now Kelvin Norman, who's been around that program for a while, and he's a former head coach at Detroit Cody High School too. So he knows what he's doing, is taking over, and they're looking for a three-peat over there. They also have an extremely talented roster. We talked about Jeremiah Beasley a little bit. Obviously, Bryce Underwood at quarterback is, not only one of the best prospects to come out of Michigan in a long time. He's like a top 3 ranked national prospect in the 2025 class. He is the real deal. Like watching him and that 7-on-7, he actually kind of started, not quite as good as I thought, missing a little bit of throws. But then, after 2 or 3 misses, I don't think he missed a single pass after that. He was just locked in. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, all the hype about this kid I think is real. Unfortunately, I don't feel like Michigan State's in a very good spot with him right now. After talking with him, he says that, they haven't been in a lot of communication. And what's important to him, like the school he's going to choose on is based on where he feels the most loved at and most connection, where he feels he can get developed at. I don't know if that's intentional by Michigan State because they feel like he's not that realistic of a target and they're going after other kids, or if, maybe they'll start to put the pressure on him a little more. There's obviously still a ton of time left. He told me that he has a rough date in early January of commitment, but nothing set in stone yet. So there's still time to make up ground there if, Michigan State chooses to do that, and if Underwood is open to doing that. So, yeah, right now I don't feel good about MSU's chances there, but whoever gets him is going to get an absolute game changer, I think. But there's a couple other kids on Belleville who don't have an offer yet, who I spoke to, who plan to be at Spartan Dawg Con. Andre Thomas Jr., linebacker, and Antoine Thomas, receiver. He recently came over from Orchard Lake St. Mary's actually, and just transferred into Belleville. They both have, several other offers already. I would be, I think maybe Andre Thomas could walk out of Spartan Dawg Con with an offer. We'll see. Just kind of a guess. And Antoine Thomas said he's building up his relationship with Coach Hawkins, Coach Tino Smith, the wide receivers over there. So I think as that progresses, he could eventually pick up an offer too. We'll see. But yeah, obviously another, Cass Tech and Belleville are probably the two teams, two of the favorites to win another Division I state championship in Michigan. Belleville's obviously the team to beat after back-to-back championships. I think Cass Tech could be a challenger. I think Cass Tech lost to Belleville by 1 point in the semifinals last year in overtime. So I expect those two to be going at it again in the playoffs. And, there's a lot of other talented teams too, but definitely having the connection with those two programs. Michigan State says things like the best in the state go to state, and how important it is to win these in-state battles. So having connections there with those two schools is huge. And I really enjoyed being able to talk to their head coaches, talk to multiple players there. Those stories for me were a little bit different than what I normally do, where I focus on just one player or whatever. In recruiting, it was nice to get kind of a full picture, a full background. I also got to talk to River Rouge's head coach with Nick Marsh, and his name's Eric Petway, and some of their other coaches and stuff, and just kind of getting these other outside perspectives of how things are going and what that relationship's like and how that process actually works between like a university and a high school, and how the communication really breaks down and stuff like that was really interesting to me. So those were fun stories to do.
That's how the sausage is made. Look at that. Just the relationships between high school and college. The whole Bryce Underwood discussion is for a different day, because this is a positive episode. I'm trying to keep it upbeat here, and but it is an interesting balance between hey, you know what? You do want to go after kids you have a realistic shot of getting, and yeah, it might be a little hard to beat out Alabama, LSU for a 5-star top 3 kid. But at the same time, he's an hour and a half drive away. But again, we're going to table that for a different time. Let's end this on an upbeat note really quick before we set you on the road here to Big Ten Media Days. I can't believe we're talking about this. 2025 kids. Is there one that you think is already a pretty heavy lean for Michigan State, or is it just a little too early to start even talking about that right now for the 2025 cycle?
There's two actually that, as of right now, I think I would feel really good about. One we've already talked about a little bit, Cassius Shivers from Cass Tech.
Okay.
The way that he talks about Michigan State, his relationship with Harlan Barnett, the secondary coach, he told me straight up that right now Michigan State's probably at or near the top of his list.
Okay.
And then, and being in state, once again, having that connection to Cass Tech, having people he knows there. He said not only does he know a lot of players from Cass Tech on the roster already, but he also knows other kids from Roseville, like Tyrell Henry and, Oak Park and all these other places around Metro Detroit. So he has not only the good relationship with the coaches, not only the Cass Tech to Michigan State connection, but he is friendly with several of the players on the team, and he can see himself making an impact there. And again, it is too early to say anything definitively about any 2025 prospect in my opinion. Even if they were to commit after Spartan Dawg Con, they could decommit later. And, again, nothing is done until they're signed. But, he's one who really speaks of MSU highly, who I think Michigan State's going to be right in throughout his entire recruitment unless, something seriously changes there. And then the other one I would say, who we briefly mentioned earlier as a visitor, is Desmond Stroughton, also from Roseville, like Tyrell Henry. And he's another one who just, glows when you bring up Michigan State, and just kind of is able to go into detail about what he likes about them. And, and like Shivers too, he has a great relationship with Harlan Barnett, and he's, a kid who can play safety. And, watching him play at the 7-on-7 and just talking to him, and, he just looks like a kid who's going to be a super athlete. And already is at the high school level, but, could go at the college level too. I think that he is definitely somebody who Michigan State is high on, and he's high on Michigan State. And so, right now, again, it's early too early to say anything, but those are the two 2025 kids who are really sticking out to me.
There we go. Hey, we'll take it. And Ryan, as always, thanks a lot for your time, your insight, your knowledge, especially, again, on a very busy week. We got Big Ten Media Days coming up. And yeah, anything that's said or done from the Michigan State side of things, come on, we're going to talk about it here on Locked on Spartans. But until then, hey, Ryan, safe travels down to Big Ten Media Days. Thank you so much, man. Really do appreciate it. Hey, everyone, subscribe, Spartans Illustrated. But also, hey, enjoy the rest of your day. Love you all. Go green.